Welcome back to MCOC Al Bundy Rules. I have Chapter 3 here, which is 3.1 and 3.2 of the Uncollected Difficulty EQ for April 2021, using only 3 stars. So I already have Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 up. So here's going to be Chapter 3, again using only 3 stars. Again, item free, no resources, meaning no boosts, no revives, no potions. So I have a team here, as I mentioned in my previous chapters, for doing these uncollected 3-star walkthroughs. Unlike my Cavalier walkthroughs, where I'm very specific on my teams based on different nodes and class advantages of nodes and the boss fights of nodes, the Uncollected doesn't have anything too crazy as far as on the nodes, to where I'm just mostly being pretty random on my team selection. I'm just kind of burying my team mainly on each of the different quests, because I feel like there isn't anything too essential there. One constant I have been pretty much using is Guardian as my 3-star, mainly for the block proficiency synergy, because it does make a pretty nice difference when you're using 3 stars against 6 stars with nodes and all that kind of stuff. So that's the main thing. Other than that, I've been kind of random. I'm using some synergies at times. So here I'm using Colossus. In the last chapter, I use a Domino, Flame, and Trinity. I'm using Colossus with Omega. My Omega isn't very ranked up, and not someone I really ever use Omega because I don't have them as a 5 or 6 star. But someone I do like his synergy with Colossus, so I brought him there for that. Guardian, like I mentioned a moment ago, I have been using Guardian on a lot of these paths for 2 big reasons. Number one, he does have a great synergy that increases block proficiency for the rest of the team. This 3-star increases it by 500. My 6 and 5 stars increase it by 1,000. But even the 500, when I'm using 3 stars against much stronger champs, makes a big difference. So if I'm trying to keep a realistic play style for a lot of people who might find these videos useful, that's going to include a pretty casual play, which is going to include some parry attack stuff, taking a little bit of block stuff here and there. So I want to be able to accommodate that, and using Guardian will help me with that right there. But number 2 reason, and really the biggest reason I like Guardian, is his damage is just absolutely ridiculous. I can load them up the way I want. If I need high damage, I can just do a few S3s, 1, 2, 3 S3s before an S2. If I don't need a ton of damage, I can do an S1 followed by an S2. Moderate, maybe 1 or 2 S3s followed by an S2. I can switch his rotation based on my needs for that time. And as I mentioned before, I've done as much as over 1.3 million damage from a single S2 with a high level of ramp up, a decent amount of S3s there. And that's what I like. So I can kind of move them how I want to for that kind of stuff. So I do find him very useful, and even just as a 3-star, he gets the job done for me. And working on the Strife, someone I haven't fought too often, but got him down fairly easy. And you see, once I got my rotation going to my S2, got the build up, S2, he just melts him away. So we got Omega Red. Looking at who I want to use here. And decided to go back with Guardian. Main reason I'm using Guardian here, nothing too over the top, but there's the class advantage, so figured, hey, why not take advantage of a class advantage? But very few of these matchups in the Uncollected difficulty have a real reason on who on my team selection and or who I'm using. If there is a main reason that I am using somebody kind of like Guardian, I will say. Other than that, most of the time, it's just pretty random. Most of these fights and nodes don't require specific counters or too much strategy, which is very different from, say, Cavalier. So if you do Cavalier level as far as the event quest, I do recommend those walkthroughs. I do every single month. I always get those done within the first day or 2 of EQ, 1 chapter at a time, because there is a lot of strategy in Cavalier. If you use the right strategy, Cavalier is super easy on event quests. With correct strategy, a little bit of planning, and a little bit of diversity on your team. If you don't have that, then it could be much more complicated. So I do heavily recommend those walkthroughs. these walkthroughs don't require anywhere near as much strategy or planning or type of counter expectations. However, it does show that these fights can be done pretty straightforward, and you don't need a stacked team to get through on there, as being done with only 3 stars and not. And sometimes people talk about Uniman, or you can beat any content with any champs with Uniman. I'm not using any units on these. I'm not using any boosts. I'm not using any revives. I'm not using any potions. I'm using 0 resources whatsoever to get my completion walkthroughs. Weak champs, just straight up gameplay. Nothing overly fancy either. You might see some dexing, some baiting, but nothing fancy. If you want, they're pretty basic skills for the most part. If you're not too comfortable with them, I did a video on that a few months back on 10 basic fighting skills to master to get good at the game. I would recommend watching that. I do talk about some of what I'm doing here in just what I'll consider basic fighting, but they will help you make these fights a little bit easier. So Guardian again takes down Omega nice and smooth. Now I'm looking at the Magneto, the House of X. I just like how that sounds for some reason. The House of X. Just so sounds like a horror movie. And I'm sure that's a reference to something, but I don't really follow comics. I do remember when he was Magneto now. Then they switched him after the buff to House of X. I can't say House of X without emphasizing my voice, scary movie style for some odd reason. Anyway, let's get back to the fight. Enough of my little tangents. Omega Red here. So, as I mentioned before, I don't use Omega Red because I can't. He's like the one champ I cannot pull at a usable. Wow. Maybe I should learn how to block with Omega Red. Well, and I do try to use him as a 3-star, and I just forget how to block all of a sudden, and that was like super ugly. But hey, it happens sometimes. When we do see my 3-star can't take a hit, and that is why you do have to be careful on these fights when using lower champs, because what was that? 2 basic kids completely took out my jab right there when using 3 stars. So gotta be a little careful on the play. That is why I will play pretty careful on these fights, because one little mistake and I'm done. You can't make mistakes when using 3 stars against 6 stars and nodes and stuff like that. So, well, I was going to go on a tangent about how I just can't pull Omega on either of my accounts. In fact, I just pulled him as a 4-star on my main account maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, before I would have to use my 3-star for synergies when I use Colossus. But now I got him as a 4-star, so I can use the 4-star. Oh, another mistake there. Ouch. So now I can use my 4-star for synergies, but I can't pull a 5 or 6-star, which I want Omega Red so bad, because I run the perfect team and perfect masteries for Omega. I just can't seem to pull him. If I ever pull him, I got plenty of Awakening gems, so I would use an Awakening, and at least as a 5-star, Awakening and sig him up, and I would also R5 Colossus at that time. I haven't R5 my Colossus 5-star because of the fact I don't like using him without Omega, and I have no problem ranking up a champ who benefits from a synergy team, but I don't like bringing a 3 or 4-star champ as that synergy. So if I was to be able to get and pull Omega and rank him up, then I would be very happy and very quick to R5 my Colossus too, and I would tag team those 2 all over the place. But in the meantime, let's get back. So made a big mistake on the Red Hulk, took a lot of damage, but that's okay, still getting through the path, and Red Hulk still did manage to finish up that fight despite that mistake. Looking at the next way, just going to go straight on through down the middle is the current plan. Again, no extra nodes. Simplest node route is the goal right now, and both these fights are pretty simple as far as defender wise goes. So Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, looking at this, and I'm looking at this matchup. So I've already lost a champ. I've already got another champ very low on health, so I'm going to try to be careful these last couple fights before the boss. I'm thinking Colossus should get the job done. And just do the basic simple strategy, parry heavy. Should get this fight finished up relatively simple is the expectation, although as those of you who watch my walkthroughs know, not everything goes towards the expectations. Again, why this can be helpful, let me kind of test the waters for you, make the mistakes, figure things out, see what works, see what doesn't work, see if it does meet the expectations, or if we need to go to plan B, or in some cases just a whole new contingency plan, which will happen every once in a while, usually when I just misread or fail to read a node, which I have a horrible habit of not reading nodes clearly, especially on bosses, and have a horrible habit of not reading abilities on new champs, and I just kind of go in there and figure it out as I go, which sometimes works, a lot of times backfires. But we get it done one way or the other. Gotta keep it interesting. So we're gonna stick with Colossus. He's been doing well with me. Get me through this fight. Heimdall. And with Heimdall, his S2 is kind of a pain, so I'm going to try to be beating out his S1 will be my primary goal, as his S1 is super easy to dext. So there we go, get that S1 out. And then try to work on my parry heavies as much as possible. Might throw in some basic hits if needed, but parry heavy will be the primary strategy here. See the auto block. And as I'm building up Colossus, he's starting to do a little more damage. And for a 3-star, dude can pack a pretty respectable punch. Of course, that Omega Red synergy definitely makes a difference there. But we're seeing some of his pretty respectable damage as the fight goes on for a 3-star. I'm trying to beat this S1. Finally comes on out. That dang auto block. And there we go. Nice parry heavy. Let's do an S3 now. But boom, take that. And bait out that S1. And here we go. He's loving that auto block. I get kind of thrown off after an S3 in Colossus and I parry and it does that like weird thing from his extra armor thingy majiggy, whatever what it's called. Different change in animations kind of throw me off sometimes if I don't use a champ overly often. And Colossus, despite him being extremely good, is not someone I use very often, just because I don't have a high star Omega to pair him up with, which I prefer using him with Omega. Just makes a big difference as far as the attack. So got on through here, so I'm asking for help to get a little bit of energy. Might have to use a couple small energy refills to finish this path. And there we go. Of course, I could just wait half an hour to finish the path, but I'm sure you'll be pretty bored listening to me talk watching the timer tick down. So let's just go ahead and use that small energy refill and get on in. Looking at special delivery, long distance relationship. So the 15 combo charges I got to be careful of. And the specialist too. Okay, so these are things I have to keep in mind. I do have a bad habit of losing track of those combo charges sometimes and take that damage. But I'm using Sunspot. I brought Sunspot specifically for this fight. This was one time in these fights for Uncollected. I did bring somebody for a specific reason. I figured, hey, Sunspot, not something I really use because I use another one I don't have in a high level. I don't have him as a 5 or a 6-star on either account, so I'm not overly familiar with them, but I figured his Incinerate immunity and build up from that could be good for this fight, so figured, hey, why not? Never use a dude, may as well try him. There I am trying to take advantage of using that special before that combo count goes down, because if it goes down to 0, I'm going to take some massive damage. So before it hits 0, that little white fist in the red circle, have to be careful. I am taking some damage there. Took a hit, so it does a lot of damage one hit, so I'm trying to be careful. I am trying to minimize my block damage as well. With Sunspot, I'm not worried about the Incinerate when Mephisto has it up. I am going to have to use a special, which means I have to take some recoil. Otherwise, I'm going to lose some massive damage. So my main goal with Sunspot, trying to solo this might be hard at this point because I didn't make a mistake. But if I can get him under 30%, that would make me happy because of the fact he gets a little awkward around the 30% mark. So if I don't have to deal with that next fight, that would be cool. If I do, so be it. And trying to get them down, and I got them down to exactly 30% now. Would like to get him down a tiny bit more if possible. Oop, he dexed me. He's becoming a ninja all of a sudden. Okay, so I got him under 30%. That means I won't have to deal with that little 30% doohickey stuff he does next fight, which makes me happy, assuming I don't solo him, which at this point is maybe not, but I don't really care about solos. I don't get any gold stars for solos. I don't get no bonus points for solos. As long as I get him down without having to use the resources, the revives, the health potions on units, I'm a happy person. So, see what happens here. If I could get myself up to a S2 or something, that could probably be good, but it has been hard. I do know people say, hey, why aren't you using S2s on Sunspot? With that 15 counter, it's pretty hard to get up there. And almost a solo, just at the very end, I just took a little too much damage and he went down, but that's okay. As I was thinking Sunspot will be good for that fight, I was very correct. Sunspot was awesome for that fight. That 3-star going against this 6-star boss and uncollected difficulty did very, very well. Should have been a solo, just a little mistake, but that's okay. Colossus should easily be able to finish this off. Then again, every time I say something like that, I tend to make a dumb mistake and prove myself wrong. But there we go. That's a positive when I got that correct. So Colossus finishes off that fight. And there goes 3.1 in the books. All done with that 3.1. 3 stars only uncollected. Here for the April 2021 event quest. So now we're going to get into 3.2. So wait for that energy to come back up and work on 3.2. And I'm going to take the easy path here. Looking at my team, we are going to notice that I have already completed this path. I was working on my completion walkthrough on this path, and then I was all the way towards the end when I realized I had accidentally brought a 4-star Wolverine instead of a 3-star Wolverine. I just didn't notice the entire time. I'm like, dang it, that's going to defeat the entire thing as far as what I'm trying to do with this video. And even though I only use Wolverine for maybe 2 or 3 fights on this path, it takes away with what I am doing with the quest, so I decided to refilm it. So I deleted that one, even though I completed the path and decided to refilm, but I did stick with this path because I do feel like this is unquestionably the easiest path for 3.2, and my goal, especially using 3 stars, is to take the easy ways in to help you and to make it realistic for me while using 3 stars and no resources. So I decided to use Wolverine. A big reason I'm brought Wolverine here is he's just sustainable. He can just take a hit. He can take block damage. He can recover from those recoils when I use specials with his regeneration. And I'm trying to get Karnak's S1 out. Finally, he decides to do that. I'm going to focus on Karnak's S1s because, well, I mean, it's his S1 is like huge meme. I mean, his S1's funny. That's like the easiest S1 to avoid in the game. So his S2 is a projectile, as I say commonly. I always will go after. I will avoid trying to dex the projectile ones if I have a choice, just because I find it easier to make a mistake on them based on different timings. Sometimes they're smaller, hard to see, and silliness like that. A regular physical attack, a lot easier to see in dex under most circumstances. So I am a little knowing that the boss on 3.2 is going to be rough. I know when I went through Cavalier, I did do a video on how to solo the boss on Cavalier difficulty, but I was also using strong champs for that. So using 3 stars, I know the Jabari Panther is going to pack a punch, so I have 0 expectations of being able to solo or trying to solo that boss fight with 3 stars. I'm not going to try to go that route. I'm sure if I tried enough, maybe eventually, but I'm just wanting to get these fights done and get through, and nothing wrong with using a team committee approach and using several. So my goal is to save as many of my champs as possible for the boss fights, just so I can kind of tag them in, have them each chip away a little bit to get that boss fight over is my goal, and it's a good, fair approach. Nothing wrong with that. So with that being said, trying to save as many champs as I can for the boss fight. I need somebody sustainable, and that's the big reason I'm going to use Wolverine. Well, I feel like he is useful on the path because he is sustainable, and the more champs he beats down for me, the more champs I should have available for the boss fight at the end, which will increase my probability of getting the boss down without using any resources. So that is my logic in thinking on this, especially for using Wolverine. Even though the fights might take a little bit longer with him, it should help me out in the long term for this end of the quest. So with Hood, I'm continuing I try to bait out his S1s. I also try to be careful not to switch him to invisible. Watch that timer when he dashes back and holds block. Kind of back off so that he doesn't turn invisible on you. And then his S1 super easy to dex. S2 not as easy. Plus it turns him invisible and will kind of change the tone of the fight. So I very much try to bait out those S1s over the S2 as much as humanly possible. It just makes the whole fight a little smoother and a little more I can keep controlling the fight like that. Otherwise, I have to adjust if he gets those S2s out. And continuing to fight on along. Getting close, having easy time baiting out those S1s, which makes it a little bit easier for me. Having an easy time keeping my Wolverine going up. Got him back up into the high 90%. And there we go. Finishing that fight at 98% makes me happy. And even a 3-star Wolverine like this can have some pretty decent use. I mean, Uncollected difficulty is the second hardest difficulty of EQ out there. And being able to, for him, a 3-star, be able to hold his own on that, especially in the final chapter, chapter 3.2, shows that pretty dang good champ. I'm really hoping I pull him as a 5-star at some point, because I would love to be able to use him again in harder content. I'd especially love to use Wolverine with Apocalypse synergy. Horseman of Apocalypse looks amazing, but someday. So here I decided to use Magneto. I really brought Magneto specifically for 2 fights. I decided to make the metal. I don't want to take a chance with Spider-Man. Stark Enhance is occasionally evades with a regular champ. I don't have any like decent True Strike 3-star champs that I have ranked up past like 1 or 2, because I don't rank up most of my 3-star champs. I haven't ranked up 3-star champs in ages, although I had recently rank up this Magneto for some purposes on these. But other than that, I figured Magneto would be good for this fight, just doing the Magneto fight. If you're not sure what I'm doing with Magneto, I do have a tutorial on him showing, but knowing that Stark Enhanced is a hashtag metal champ, I figured that will make this fight nice and easy. I figured Magneto would also be really good for the Sentinel on this path. So I did, unlike most of the previous quests, I did have some strategy on who I selected for this path. More so, again, mainly because I need to be careful and have as many champs as I can for the final boss. Otherwise, it might turn out ugly for me, because that boss is going to be somewhat challenging with only 3 stars. No boost, no items, anything like that. So I need to be prepared. I did also bring Doom for this next fight. I could have also used Claire. I got a Claire I was going to bring, but I decided, I'll go ahead and bring Doom, because main reason I chose Doom over Claire, even with Suicides on. Normally I would choose Claire over Doom when I have Suicides on, but I did choose Doom right now because, well, one, he's great for Hyperion, then again, so is Claire, but I figured he might be able to get a little more damage on the boss. If he's still alive when the boss comes around, I figured I could just get some stronger levels, chunks of damage done with him, because I am going to use a team approach on the boss, and I figured he could do more mass damage at a time than Claire would be able to, even if he didn't get a lot. So that was my strategy. I only plan on using him on this fight and whatever's left over the boss, unless something kind of changes along the way. So working on this Hyperion right there. I try to be a little careful with the rotations on Doctor Doom when I am running only when I am running Suicides, but based on the speed of Hyperion, I do got to be careful. So I did do an S1 there, but I do get the recoil every time I launch an S1 or an S2, so I do try to keep that in mind when using them. But then again, I don't need Doctor Doom to clear many fights on this path. Mainly this one is the big one. I might have to improvise if I lose a champ along the way, but that is the current plan. And you got to be careful right there. That power bar was kind of concerning me, especially got a power gain, so I did launch that S1 just to be a little safe. Good thing I did, because I got the power gain right afterwards. So now I'm just trying to finish this fight off. I was hoping that would do it, but it didn't, so I had to take the recoil, but down he goes. I still got a fairly well health Doctor Doom left over after that fight, so I'm satisfied with that. Now we're going to move on to Sentinel. And again, I brought Magneto for the Stark fight as well as the Sentinel fight, because of both hashtag metal, and I figured he should do pretty well in these fights, make them simple. Again, based on the past notes, the higher attack levels of Uncollected on 3.2, and some concerns about the boss at the end when haven't had a lot of fighting experience with, and of course final boss nodes are always generally pretty excessive on this game to a point, especially if you're going to use lower star champs. So need to have as many champs as I can available for that, for the group approach. So I figured Magneto will work really well. And as I said, I was pretty selective. I did pick my team very purposely for 3.2, unlike the other quests for the Uncollected 3-star walkthroughs. Those were mostly random for the most part. This was strategy on who I picked for which fight for 3.2. So there goes Sentinel. Magneto did what I want him to do, and even the 3-star Magneto, you gotta love that. I mean, only 20 hits completely dominated that fight. So now, got Red Goblin, another fairly new champ one I'm not super familiar with, but I do know his S1 is super easy to deck, so I do know I'm going to focus on that. I decided to go and use Red Magneto here. No... A little bit of logic to this. This won't be his main fight to shine, and I don't care if he solos him or not, because I'm not thinking I'm going to be able to use Magneto for the boss. I brought Magneto for 2 fights. He did very well what I needed him to do in those 2 fights. So now he served his purpose. So I'm just going to go ahead and use him in Red Goblin. If I get lucky and finish up Red Goblin with Magneto, cool, I'm happy. If I don't, I'm not going to sweat it, because I could be wrong, but I don't see Magneto being very useful in the Jabari Panther boss fight, because the Jabari is going to cleanse, so I can't do a pair. Even a non-metal, normally Magneto is good against non-metal champs too, but with the cleanse, that's going to limit my ability to fight Magneto the way I normally do, which is going to be parry heavy. And I'm trying to do basics, trying to build up any prowess in that fight, and a non-metal, I just don't foresee Magneto being useful for that fight. So I decided to go and use him here, even though this isn't the perfect fight for him, but I feel more comfortable if I make a mistake and lose a champ. I feel more comfortable losing Magneto at this point than one of my other champs for what I'm looking for on the boss. So now I'm looking at those prowess. I was going to try to get those prowess up. I've been baiting those S1s because S1's pretty easy. Having a hard time getting the good parries for some reason. And then I am at an S3, but I am trying to get some more prowess first. And there we go. Got it up to 35, I believe that was, before it went off. S3. So I'm going to get as much damage as I can in Red Goblin is the goal here with Magneto. Again, if I lose Magneto, I'm not too worried because he might be able to take away a couple % of damage in the boss fight, but I'm not expecting a whole lot more than that. So take whatever damage will come down to 1%. So let's just do whatever I can at this point. And yeah, I just ran right into it. I got a little aggressive at the end, like, okay, it's crunch time. I had to play aggressive because I'm still losing health based on running suicides and the poison, so it was just a countdown time. So got whatever damage I could at the end, bring in Doom now. So I was unable to finish Red Goblin with Magneto, which is okay. I was like 50-50 on that anyways. So Dr. Doom should be able to finish this. His main purpose has already been served on the Hyperion, but this was also a thought process in my head that he could be useful here if needed. I was thinking about bringing Wolverine in to finish this fight, but I decided I would keep. He might be decent on Jabari Panther based on the class advantage, even though bleeds and cleanse, I'm not too sure if that's a good idea or not. I'm going to find out soon enough, but I decided to go ahead and save Wolverine for the next fight and go and use Dr. Doom here because we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But the good news is this fight is almost over. I'm almost at the boss, and we're going to see what happens there. Again, I'm just going to try to take a team approach, take off whatever I can per person, and see what happens. If you do want help on fighting Jabari Panther, this is not going to be the video on for strategy on how to fight her because of the circumstances involved on my team and stars and all that. But I do have a video for Cavalier difficulty, how to solo her. I use a Symbiote Supreme, I believe, for a solo, and it can be used with a lot of champs, but there's a difference between 5 and 6 stars and 3 stars. So I'm looking. The big thing on her I've learned is going to be the cleanse. We did see some nodes on there. The medium cleanse. One that does mediums and taking off the debuffs is a big thing, which is probably going to make Wolverine not super great with his bleeds. But I'm thinking I can still chip away some damage on her with him, even if I can't get those bleeds going. But we'll have to see. Her specials aren't too bad, but it just takes a little bit. Like any new champion, getting used to the specials always takes a bit, and you kind of get confused between the S1s and S2s. So her specials aren't bad. Just takes a little practice. I've only fought her a few times so far, so I'm not routine with her special. And that was just, oh man. Animation, just something threw me off there, and I just completely missed a dex. And well, Wolverine didn't do anywhere near what I wanted or really needed him to do. I only took 5% off there, so I'm a little disappointed on that. I was hoping to get at least 15 to 20 to 25% off per champ, knowing I had 4 champs left on her, and Wolverine is going to make me have to pick up the slack with the other champs. So that was not good. So I brought Dr. Doom in, and I tried to, this is going bad. Alright, see why I wanted to bring in some extra champs. The champs I'm less certain about I'm using first to kind of test out the waters, and I try to do the heavy after the shock and the cleanse. Just so I've only taken out 9% with my first 2 champs. Very ugly. Like I said, I wasn't planning on this being pretty, but I was also not planning on it being this ugly. So really ugly so far. I obviously have to tighten up my game, or I am not going to be successful in my goal. So Nick Fury I brought specifically for this fight. I saved my 2 most comfortable champs that I felt for this champ for the last. I kind of, on a champ I'm not overly comfortable with, I kind of use my less certain champs first to kind of test out the waters. So Nick Fury, I figured I could do some damage. Even with the cleanse, I figured I could get some damage going on with him. And his extra life doohickey decoy thing I felt could be useful here too, which had just saved me a little moment ago. And although he's not being super smooth, he is definitely getting some damage going way better than my first 2 attempts. And oh, I just wrong special. I thought that was the other special animation. I ran into the end. So sloppy play right here, which happens with a new champ, you know, getting familiar. So Guardian, I plan on using Guardian for last. I was hoping Guardian would only have to do maybe 20 to 30%. In fact, he has to do more than half by himself. After the first thing didn't even take off half, he's got his work cut out. But with anybody can do it for me, it's going to be Guardian. And between his ability to handle his business, between the blocking, I'm not going to have to worry too much about the damage over time for his main damage, although he can get some on the special too. But I know I can do insane damage with Guardian. So my goal now is to kind of survive as I bait specials, try to be more careful than I have been. And keep getting confused. I should have been able to punish that special at the end. I got that confused with the projectile one. So my goal here is to build up, get as much damage as I can with Guardian. Normally I would do an S3 to an S2, but I've been seeing pretty good damage going off on this fight for a 3-star against a 6-star. Oh, stupid mistake there. Ooh, ouch. Ran right into the special. So I still got a long way to go. I got 43% and I got an almost down Guardian. It's not looking good for me, but I do know if I can get to my special 2, then I can do that. And ooh, look at that. So I did not finish her off, but that was just an S1 and an S2 did all that. So I'm trying to play careful here. I got her specials mixed up. If I just practiced against her a couple more times, I'd be a little smoother on the specials. But despite one of the ugliest group approach boss fights you're probably going to see anytime soon, it did work. Yeah, talk about adding a little bit of a will I or will I not to that, because was it smooth, was it clean, no and no, was it done without any resources, yes and yes, and that's all that matters. No brownie points for making it clean and pretty, right? So anyways, I hope you liked the video, hope that helped you get through. Enjoy chapter 3. Remember, I got chapter 1 and 2 as well. I also got Cavalier item free walkthroughs as well for event quest every month. Don't forget to click that top left icon, subscribe to MCOC. Al Bundy rules.